Hello and welcome to The Stack. For this week's show, we're taking you to sunnier places. We preview Monocle's Greece Handbook, and we speak to the founder of In Palma, a Palma-based title that is celebrating 2 decades. Enjoy the show. From Midori House in London, this is The Stack, 30 minutes of print industry analysis, and I am Fernando Augusto Pacheco. To start the show, a pleasure to welcome to our studio Confact's deputy editor and the editor of Greece, the Monocle Handbook, which is Monocle's newly released title with the best fashion, food and design from the beautiful country. Here is Chiara Rimella with more.
As an Italian, there's always a little bit of an element of kind of competitiveness when it comes to like summertime destinations. And so I had been to Greece and loved the country, but there was part of me that always was a little bit jealous because when people would tell me like, oh, I'm actually going to Greece this summer, I'd be like, wait a second, what about Sicily? You know, like there was so much competition. But actually, I had memories of amazing travels to Athens and to the islands, to the Cyclades when I was a teenager. And then hadn't really been back to Athens until a couple of years ago and found the city completely transformed in a way that was astounding and really fascinating. And then approaching the book, I think I was really fascinated because I had been to a few islands enough to know that there was difference between those. But once you really start looking into it, the diversity of the country is really mind-boggling. You know, there are so many islands, and Greeks will always tell you that they have their own favorite one and that each one of them has such a distinct identity. And seen from the map or seen from outside, it's hard to picture it. But then when you actually just get off the ferry onto the island, you can tell almost immediately there's a completely different vibe. And that's something that you really just experience by going there. And, you know, it was a tough assignment, but I did go to Greece in early July.
Oh, gosh, I feel very sorry for you. But
it was tough, yeah.
And I want to talk about the islands very soon, but Athens, I think such an interesting story here because it was a city full of challenges here in Europe, but my God, there's a resurgence of Athens, amazing shops, people moving there. And I think that's what the handbook perhaps is different from like a normal travel guide, if I may say, because it's almost like if you wanted to move to Greece, maybe you should read the book, right?
Absolutely. I mean, when I have been explaining to people what the work has been about in terms of putting together this book, I've never really talked about it as a travel guide, even though most people will just assume, oh, you've been working on a travel guide for Greece. And it's not really. It's almost like a snapshot of the most interesting businesses in the country right now. And that can be hospitality, that can be culture, that can be retail. And yes, they are all places that you can go and visit. So there is obviously a travel aspect to it, but it really is a sort of like an in-between to an ode to the country and everything that it does well. And also it's usable for people. But you're absolutely right. The narratives that kept coming up in all of these interviews that we did were either people who were taking over locations, shops, places on the islands that had been abandoned and they finally decided to kind of revive them. People who had lived abroad and returned to Greece with a desire to do something for the country. And so many people actually moving from abroad, falling in love with the lifestyle and realizing that it's absolutely possible to make that a reality year round, be that in Athens or even directly to the islands themselves. You know, for so many years, we were under this impression that the islands only live in summer and then it's absolutely dead quiet in the rest of the year. And, you know, obviously in some islands that's more true than others, but there are certainly islands where you can, and people do, live year round now. And that migration is happening from Athens to the island. I spoke to lots of people in Tinos who were like, you know, we came here every weekend and then we were like, let's stop this commute. Let's just base ourselves here. It's funny how for people who will come maybe from Northern Europe, already moving to Athens feels like a complete change of pace or a complete different atmosphere because, you know, it's sunny and so much warmer. You know, I was there in December and it was shockingly nice, you know, shockingly nice. But then for the Athenians, it's like one step forward. You're like, no, actually, I want to move away from Athens and on to the islands. So the process of putting together the book was really also almost like building a network, because you identify people who are really amazing at what they do in their respective fields, and then you ask them who are the people that they respect and whose businesses they really appreciate, and it's like Pandora's box, you know, it just never ends. And I think the hardest thing about this book was that we just didn't have as much space to include all the amazing things that are going on in the country right now. And every book is always going to be a subjective representation of a country, and Monocle's point of view on things is obviously very distinctive, and so it was always going to be a selection of the places that feel right for Monocle. But even within that, it was really quite hard to really just whittle it down to 20-something hotels and 30-something restaurants, because the country is so vast and so much is happening that it's just so exciting
and so beautiful as well. And I want to go back to the islands because they are fantastic. I need to visit Greece more often, I have to say, Chiara. I've been only once, believe it or not. Talking about the islands, maybe the ones that you visited and they are featured in the book, is there one that becomes your island? Like you mentioned the Greeks, that they like to go to their specific places. Or even if it's not your island, one of your travels in Greece that you remember fondly.
Listen, this is actually an easy answer for me, because I did an incredible amount of research before going out in July, and I did actually go on holiday first and then reported for the book afterwards. And my long research landed me on Sifnos as the island that I thought would be appropriate for me, because it's close enough to Athens. It's not too kind of rugged and sort of under the radar. It still has a few businesses, a few points of interest, let's say. It also has an incredible gastronomic tradition. Historically, it was home to this Salamentas, who is considered the founder of modern Greek cuisine, and so many interesting restaurants. And as the host of the menu, that is very much like top of my list when it comes to where to go. And I remember we got off the ferry and the portal opened, and when you see an image out of like your wildest dreams and imagination, this incredible crystalline cove. And that was the port, which is astonishing to me, because I've traveled a lot by ferry and normally you get into sort of like murky waters. But this was like a beach where you would have dreamt to take a swim in. And Sifnos is just the perfect size. It will take you about like maybe 25, 30 minutes roughly to drive from one end of the island to the next. There are enough beaches to keep you busy for 4 or 5 days, like visiting one each day, but not so many that you leave feeling like, oh God, I didn't make the most of it. I didn't see everything. You can kind of like, in inverted commas, complete it, but always feel stimulated. And by the time we honestly just never wanted to leave. We'd sort of, I don't know, we really delved into the hum of the place. There's something really magical about Greece, actually, in that respect. And I've talked about it with the creative director here at Monocle a lot, because he's long been a real big fan of holidays in Greece. And that was the conversation that frequently we'd have. We'd be like, why don't you go to Italy instead? And he's like, actually, I have a passion for tavernas, because you're on a beach and there's an option for like either 1 or 2 tavernas maybe on the beach. And then you go and the menu is maybe like 5 or 6 items. And you don't have this kind of overwhelming idea of choice. Like Italy, I love it, don't get me wrong. But sometimes you go to the restaurant and it's just like, wow, a smorgasbord of offering and so many things. Sometimes you go to a Greek taverna and you're like, yeah, I'm going to have the salad and I'm going to have the grilled fish and I'm going to have the tzatziki and
the octopus. Yeah.
And the octopus. And that's it. You don't have to overcomplicate it. And there's something really liberating about that. Something that really just rewires your brain. And no booking, no nothing, just showing up to the restaurant in your bikini and sitting down and having a cat, jump up to your lap. I was in Keronisso in Sifnos, and that's like your postcard idea of what a Greek holiday is like. It's just this tiny little fishing village, one beach, there's a ceramics shop, there's 2 tavernas. One is a bit more kind of rough and ready, and the other one's on the side of the bay with all these beautiful tables looking out to the sea. And one shop that sells, like ice creams and tobacco or whatever.
It's always important.
And that's it. That's all there is.
Chiara, you're selling it to me very, very well, I have to say. But now to a topic that also I think our stack listeners care a lot, and Monocle does as well, which is print, bookshops. Of course, when I'm planning my trips to Athens and to other cities, I want to visit a good bookshop. And I think there are quite a few featured in the book, right?
Of course, we've talked about the kind of the hospitality side of things so far, but actually the book features a long chapter on culture as well. And every country, I think, has its own specialty when it comes to which of the arts is most prominent. Obviously, the culture chapter in this book features heavily, all your archaeological museums, but there's a really exciting contemporary art scene in Greece, particularly as you were saying, lots of people are moving, and that starts with the artists. So the Athens Biennale is fantastic, and there's both Greek artists as well as international artists moving because, the rents are relatively cheap compared to the rest of Europe, etc., etc. But on to the subject of, I think Greece is particularly good at open-air cinemas, and we have a bit of a kind of pull-out.
They have the weather
section.
for it.
Exactly. But bookshops are really nice, and there are a lot of very nice ones around the country. We tried to focus on those that did also have a bit of a kind of English language offering so that people who visited could be satisfied. I'll pull two for you. One in Athens, which I think is amazing because it is just like razor sharp. It's one of those bookshops where you go and you sort of don't need anything, but you want everything. And it's hyper. They have this space right in the middle of town, and they founded it because they wanted a space that was at that high level of curation, kind of in the real heart of central Athens. It's very distinctive. You can tell immediately from the outside. It's got all these walls painted blue, and they stock primarily art, photography, really, really beautiful books. But the one thing that they said in the interview, which I think is remarkable, and again, it's testament to, I think, the allure of the country. They said, if the word Greece is in the title, it will sell. So that's all you need. The image that the country itself conjures up is enough to just make you fall in love with it. And then the other bookshop that I would love to direct people to, this was an absolute find. It was phenomenal. It's in Tinos. It's called Antilalos. It's in a tiny little square right in the middle of the Tinos town. And it's one of those places that is just perfect. And it works. Mm-hmm. And it's so effortless. And they do coffee and cakes. And then all of the books on display, they're not in order. They're just like a jumble. And again, it's just so fascinating. It feels like you've just stumbled across somebody's house and you can pull things from the shelves. Most things are secondhand, apart from a few books about Tinos itself. They're a small publisher. And the sisters who run it literally will go to bazaars in Athens to source these things, these really rare books, and they will find philosophy, poetry, amazing books. They also refuse to tell me where they go to buy the books, obviously, because there is, secrecy must be maintained. But then they have this structure that extends across 3 stories. And at the very top, they have this space where they can do workshops, where they can do yoga, where they can do projections of films. And you go up, and from the top floor, you can see down on this amazing vine-covered square, and downstairs they have these tables that kind of extend into the square. And it's just one of those magic places where you're it's busy all day long. And it gives you this amazing sense of hope that bookshops can and should be the heart of a town. And that's what Antilalos is.
Thank you very much, Chiara. And Greece, the Monocle Handbook, is out now. You can buy a copy at monocle.com. From Greece to Palma in Spain now, where a local title is celebrating 20 years. In Palma was founded by Iván Terrasa, who was committed to make the best magazine about Mallorca. And 20 years after, In Palma has 400,000 readers, not only in the island, but for all of those that hold a space dear in their hearts. To find out more about his work of passion, here is Iván.
We're celebrating 20 years. We launched the first issue December 2004. And 20 years ago, I'm a journalist, and I had a revelation I didn't know, I was in the United States for some years and in Madrid for 7 years, but I needed to come back to Palma because I'm from the island, and when you are from an island, you always need to come back. and I didn't know what to do. And one day I saw a bunch of books and magazines in my parents' house. So I had a revelation of saying that I had to do a magazine. And I knew from that moment that it was going to be not just a simple magazine, but it was going to be a magazine from Mallorca, but that could compete with any magazine in the world in terms of quality, design, photography, stories, not losing our local aim and our local heart. Monocle it's a universe. We are a universe from Mallorca. But if you see the quality of the magazine and everything, it's a magazine that you could have anywhere in the world.
And there is something about Palma, isn't it, Ivan? Not necessarily just from people that were born there, but, we have many people, our very own Andrew Tuck as well, who adores Palma. There's something that, that connects with people. And I think a magazine like this is quite special because it's not necessarily for only those that live there, perhaps, but for those that have a connection, no matter how small they are.
No, yes, it's true, Fernando, because one of the places that we deliver our magazine is in the rooms of more than 70 4 and 5-star hotels here in Mallorca. So it's with a purpose. And it's that if somebody comes from London or from Paris or from Stockholm or from San Francisco, they stay here in Mallorca in a good hotel for 1 week. So they find In Palma in the room. So what they do is that they can know a piece of Palma, of Mallorca, and when they go back to their countries, they take the magazine with them. And a lot of them become subscribers. And we send the magazine all around the world, Australia, Japan, the States, England. And it's nice that a piece of Palma travels around the world.
We'll be talking in a bit about the special launches of a special book you're doing, the new winter edition as well. How much did the title or In Palma in general changed from when you launched in 2004?
It's a big change because at the beginning, I realize now that we didn't really know a lot about making a magazine. At the beginning, it was 64 pages. Now it's 204. The paper, it was okay, but it was a very common paper. Now we have a premium offset paper. At the beginning, the contents were more naive. Now they are much more deep. Also, the design we developed it over the years. And we're still doing it because when you make a paper magazine, you never stop developing with the evolution of it.
And in terms of the publishing side, you have your own Loft editorial, right? Which publishes the magazine, but you also do other projects sometimes, right?
Yes, because at the beginning, when we started with the magazine, a lot of our announcers and clients and friends, they started to say to us, oh, we would like to do a magazine like yours for our business, let's say, or if we have a golf course, or we have a hotel resort. And we said, okay, why not? So we started to make magazines for some very special, not a lot, only for the real special businesses that we connect. And also we make very fine books, very, very fine books, maybe 2 or 3 a year, because we don't want to make 20 books a year. We just want to make 4 or 5, but real special books on architecture, on design, on art. And we made a very special book this year for us.
A celebration, right? A celebration of the 20 years.
We knew that for the 20 years, we should do something special. And we decided to make something really very, very special. That is a book that is we call it XXL book because it's a 12-kilogram book. Open is 1 meter from side to side. It's very, very smooth, handmade, done one by one. And it's very, very, very special. It's something for collectors, really. I mean, for people that want something, a book, a very, very special book.
12 kilos, you said.
Yes. Yes, it's
That's
huge.
impressive.
Yes. I mean, we learn from the people we like. I mean, we learn from Monocle, we learn from Taschen. And Taschen is, of course, an editing house I admire a lot. And they make their sumo books. And I said, one day we have to make something similar. And we tried from our small island to make something inspired in what Passion does so incredibly well. But we're very happy with the result. And it's even more special than Taschen, I'm sorry, because they are handmade, one by one, handmade.
And I can see how much this is a work of passion as well. But the magazine is doing well. I think it's good business, right? 20 years. And you also, besides the book, there's a new issue coming out, the winter edition. I wonder if you can talk to us a bit more about the business side of things. So clearly that was a work of passion, as I said, but it must be working very well after 20 years, right?
Yes, we are very happy. I think we have followed a very good way that makes that our business now is very consolidated with clients, announcers, distribution, subscribers. And it's a result of these 20 years of good job, because at the beginning we started from zero. And during these 20 years, as a lot of people has happened, we had to face the coronavirus, economical crisis, but it's good to see that this year, our 20 years celebration is probably the best year for us of all the 20. So it's good.
That's fantastic. And Ivan, looking at the new issue, for example, the winter edition coming out, what makes a good story for In Palma?
Above all, a story that inspires our readers, inspires in a really good way of that the reader feels that he or she has learned from the heart. We are very much on inspiring people in our magazine. We are very interested in people that has a story to tell, but a story to tell from their hearts. We are very interested always in childhood, because in childhood it's everything. So we ask even to famous people open their heart and tell us about their childhood, how it was, what they did, what were their fears. Because we think that it's a very good starting point. And it's for us, it's very nice to see that maybe people with a lot of success, how when they were childs or when they were young, they had fears, they had insecurities. Not everything was easy for them. And we want to show this to the readers, that everybody has a story and everybody had some difficulties and barriers to jump.
That's a beautiful explanation. And I'm going to ask you perhaps a difficult question, but because I've been to Palma for the first time this year, what are your favorite things about Palma? I mean, do you like perhaps a restaurant or the galleries or just the climate? I wonder what's special for you.
It's a very good question, Fernando. When I think about it, for me, Palma is my city, that's for sure. It's the place where I belong. And Paseo del Borne is the heart of Palma. It's the place I like the most in the world. I can feel when I'm in there, I can feel hundreds and hundreds years of generations of Palmesanos walking under the trees. And I love Palma in winter. It's the best time of the year to go to Palma. It's a city like no other in winter, because it's small enough, but it's also big enough. And because the climate is very good, but it's also cold, but it's in a very cozy, cold way. All the magic of Palma is in winter. Lights, streets, darkness.
I think
Yes,
Palma is where you can really feel the winter sun, because, I've been hearing stories as well that even November, December, you can still have a lovely sunny day, which, let's be honest, is so rare here in London, for example. Winter sun happens in Palma, right?
yes. And I don't like when they try to sell us about, I'm not in the way of selling Palma as a tourist place. I'm on the point of selling it as a cultural, gastronomic place where you can really be. It's like a very, 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 very small London, or in a very, very, very small Paris. It's the sun here. The tourism guides and everything. They try to sell Mallorca, the place with 300 sunny days a year. Okay, but don't think it's a sunny day like August. It's a sunny day with a lot of charm and a lot of. No, it's very intimate. The sun in winter in Mallorca is very intimate. It's very nice, it's beautiful, but it has some nostalgia too. And I love that.
You're inspiring me here, Iván. And finally, if our Stack listeners, or for those who never been to Palma, want to find out more about your publication, where should they go in case they want to buy a copy or about the latest issue and everything?
Well, it's in the most important book libraries here in Mallorca, and in all the in all the kioscos, in all the places where you can buy papers and magazines and books. And also, if they stay here in a 4 or 5 star hotel, I'm sure they will find the magazine in the rooms for sure.
In Palma, issue 81 is out now, and so is their book, In Palma, the book. And to find out more information, go to inpalma.com. And that's it for this week's show. My thanks to our editor, Jack Jewers. Any comments or queries, feel free to write to me, Fernando, at fp@monocle.com. And remember, we're back next Saturday at 10 a.m. London time. Meanwhile, you can listen to previous episodes on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You've been listening to The Stack. I'm Fernando Augusto Pacheco. Thank you for listening.